Everyone is chasing LinkedIn's latest trends and features, but I see too many well-meaning and talented people ignore or underestimate the fundamental truths of LinkedIn marketing success, which have not changed in my 10 plus years of business and 15 plus years on the platform. Because when you keep on chasing the sexy bells and whistles and ignore what really matters, it's costing your credibility and you're missing out on opportunities to attract your ideal clients and grow your business. So it's time for some LinkedIn hard truths in these three categories: profile optimization, engagement strategy, and content strategy. And for funsies, I've compiled some of the most candid advice I've given on this channel. It's kind of like a brutal truth greatest hits. But first, let's make sure you don't fall into the same trap that a lot of LinkedIn users fall into, because this can derail you. So I find that a lot of business owners and marketers, when they get into LinkedIn, they want to get certain things. Questions I hear all the time are, how do I get more likes, comments, and reposts? What's our shares? How do I get more followers? How do I get more customers? And I understand why they're asking these questions. When I started on LinkedIn, I had these questions too. But these questions no longer work on LinkedIn. And here's why. LinkedIn is different than the other social media platforms. Take Facebook, for example. People log into Facebook to connect with family and friends and really to brag about themselves. Oh, your son just made honor roll? Well, my daughter just skipped 4 grades and won the Great British Baking Show, and she's not even British. Let's just like each other's posts so we can boost each other's egos. LinkedIn does not work this way. One of the top reasons why people log on to LinkedIn is to learn something. Not stroke each other's egos, learn something. And LinkedIn knows this, and it's reworked its entire algorithm around this fact. So if we just waltzed into the LinkedIn network, where members are trying to gain the skills and knowledge for their own professional growth, the last thing we'd want to say is, hey guys, let's talk about me and how amazing I am. You should buy from me. And you know what's even worse? When we keep the attention here, then we're focused on how things come this way. In other words, how can we get these things for ourselves? So here's what we're going to do on LinkedIn. We're going to replace the word get with earn. How do I earn more likes, comments, and reposts? How do I earn more followers? How do I earn more customers? And how do we earn it? By not thinking in this direction, but thinking this way. In other words, giving our audience what we want. It's a giving mindset. And on LinkedIn, the givers are the winners. But first, here's the big general message you want to communicate on LinkedIn. And you're not going to use these exact words in a single statement in a single post, but it's more, here's the general communication that people will get from you as they see you on LinkedIn. I understand the challenges you face in your job. Here are free resources that can help. If you need help that's more personalized, here's how I serve my customers and why I'm qualified. Let's talk. Or in simpler terms, I get you, here's free stuff, want more? Hire me. I don't know if anyone's ever summarized LinkedIn this way, but that's what it is. You're showing your audience that you are a caring, expert resource who, by the way, is available to do actual business when they're ready for that conversation. Now, if at some point during the sales conversation you want to parenthetically mention your daughter who skipped 4 grades and won the Great British Baking Show without being British, go for it. I just wouldn't lead with it. We also need to train ourselves to get into our customers' heads and then show on LinkedIn how we understand our customers better than our competitors do. Because whoever is able to show that the best is the one who wins the customer. And one of the best ways to do that is through story, but it might not be in the way you think. At the beginning of a movie, the main character typically has a problem that better be solved by the end, or else their life goes to pot. Like in a Hallmark movie, the main character is some small town girl with a heart full of dreams who's just moved to the big city and she's totally lost. And to make matters worse, she has some self-absorbed fiancé back home, and you know she deserves so much better. And if she doesn't ditch this deadweight soon, she's going to be stuck in a joyless marriage that's going to suck the soul out of her. And you can't help but think, how's Hallmark going to get her out of this? So now let's bring this back to real life. Everyone feels like they are the protagonist in their own real life movie. And most of the time, they know the problems they have and they're trying to find a solution so their story can have a happy ending. So the obvious question is, where do you come into the real life movie? Here's how I explain it in the same video. And I really encourage you to use this concept not only for LinkedIn, but literally for all your marketing. It's huge.
You know how at some point in the movie, some wise person shows up who ends up guiding the protagonist to the happy ending? Like Yoda was the guide to Luke Skywalker, and Morpheus to Neo, and Dumbledore to Harry Potter. In your customer story, you are that guide. You are the Yoda, the Morpheus, the Dumbledore, all wrapped up in one, which is amazing, except you don't live in a swamp or wear a leather trench coat or have a beard that's so long people can trip on it.
So you are the guide, but ultimately the focus is on your customer and how you fit into their story.
Because of the one key thing for all of your marketing, and that is people buy stuff to solve problems. It doesn't matter what it is. I hired a bookkeeper because doing all the books myself would make my brain explode. And once a month, I buy a pint of non-dairy Ben & Jerry's Tonight Dough and eat it in one sitting to fill a missing piece of my soul, which it doesn't, and I end up hating myself. But in the moment when I'm eating the chocolate and the caramel and the fudge brownie bits and the cookie dough, it feels good.
Okay, so now let's talk about your personal profile, because your top priority before you start posting, before you start engaging, is to fill out every section you possibly can of your profile and optimize it like there is no tomorrow. And I'm often asked, why is there all this attention on the personal profile and not the company page?
And believe me, I know that intuition would tell us to focus on our company page first, because after all, we probably have a Facebook business page and an Instagram professional account, and we may even have a Twitter account that's dedicated for our business. But LinkedIn is different, and what I've learned is that the magic happens on LinkedIn at the personal profile level. Think of LinkedIn as a 24/7 virtual networking event. When you attend a networking event, you attend as yourself, as a living, breathing human being who represents your company. And you're building trust and relationships as living, breathing human beings. And when you do that, the sales will follow.
Another reason to focus on your profile is that LinkedIn generally sends your posts to more news feeds when it comes to your profile than the company page. And I don't see that changing anytime soon or ever. Okay, so now let's go one step further and imagine how our customers are seeing our profile. And we're going to use that same conference networking analogy.
Let's talk briefly about how you show up at the conference. This is so important. Chances are when you go to a conference, you don't dress like a schlep. You dress halfway decently, right? I mean, your personal brand and your company brand are at stake. It's the same thing on LinkedIn. And because your personal brand is the ambassador to your company brand, your LinkedIn personal profile especially has to be dressed up. So you can be meeting and having conversations with all the right people on LinkedIn. But if your profile has missing sections or typos, or it's just flat out bland, it's like you're throwing all the opportunities out the window. Do I feel passionate about this? Yes. And you should too.
Now, it does take time to optimize your profile. I know this because of all the time I spend working with my clients on it. And if I tried making this video an entire tutorial on every single thing you need to do to optimize your profile, it would run an hour longer than it's already going to run. So instead, let me tell you about one key concept about profile optimization that's going to help you more than anything else.
So first, people have to know who you are and what you do. One of the most effective ways to do this is to apply to your LinkedIn profile what's called the StoryBrand Grunt Test. Now, the Grunt Test is the brainchild of Donald Miller of StoryBrand, and technically it's meant for websites and landing pages, but my clients and I use it on LinkedIn too. Here's how the Grunt Test works. Imagine you show your LinkedIn profile to a prehistoric caveman who knows nothing about your business. But of course, I understand, why would he know anything about your business? All he knows how to do is draw stick figures and not get eaten by saber-toothed tigers. But I digress. Anyway, suppose you're showing your profile to this caveman for just 5 seconds. Could this caveman immediately and easily grunt the answers to the following questions? What does this person or business offer? How will they improve my life? How can I buy their product or service? And for a caveman, it would be saber-tooth repellent, not get eaten, pay in sharp pebbles. So why give the caveman only 5 seconds? Because in digital marketing, 5 seconds is all you get to make an impression before that person decides to move on to something else. That means on LinkedIn, you need to have all the key information at the top of your profile without requiring someone to scroll, because chances are they're not going to take the time to scroll. So at the top of my profile, I've answered these questions in a few places. My headline clearly states what I do and how I improve people's lives. It also encourages a DM to start a conversation. My banner or cover photo speaks more to how someone's life is improved with the likes, hearts, and the graph going up. Now, some people also put words in their banner, which is totally fine as long as it's not too many words and it's not too cluttered and what you're saying in the banner isn't already repeated in the headline. And my link right here shows exactly how they can buy my 1-hour consultation.
Now, once you've optimized your profile, you might think that your next step is to start posting like a madman or a madwoman. And it sounds logical, and I used to think it was logical too, but no. On LinkedIn, your next step needs to be engagement. That's where the magic happens on LinkedIn, because ultimately, LinkedIn is a networking platform. You build your business through networking. And yes, all this networking will actually help your content strategy, as you'll see later. So let's start with growing your network. And should you focus on quality connections or a great quantity of connections? And the answer might surprise you.
So you have conflicting information, quality or quantity. You don't want to make the wrong choices or have you miss out on huge opportunities. It's like a squirrel trying to decide if it should hoard a whole bunch of acorns or seek out that juiciest one. I don't know if acorns are juicy. So what if we created a strategy that brings together the best of both worlds? That's what I'm going to show you. But first, we need to understand how quality and quantity by themselves help you before we put them together. Now, one of the biggest reasons to focus on quality connections is time. And if you're regular to this channel, you might have seen this chart. It's how many weeks you might live before you die. And bear with me here, I promise you this will actually get back to LinkedIn. Each square here represents a week. If I live till I'm 90, if I'm lucky, I only have these many squares left. So I have to be super careful with my squares. I only have so many squares to spare. So in LinkedIn, if I'm reaching out to people to connect with and eventually engage with, I'm happy to spare squares with people who can make an obvious direct impact on my business, like referral partners and clients. It's the most efficient use of time. Now, the thinking here isn't 100% right, and we'll get to that soon, but in general, you need to be mindful of the squares. Another reason to lean into quality has to do with the LinkedIn algorithm. Quality connections are more likely to want to read your posts because your topics will matter to them. In other words, they're going to find your posts more relevant. And relevance plays a huge role in LinkedIn deciding which of your connections and how many of your connections will see your posts in their newsfeed. I'm not going to say that a quality network is going to make your posts go viral like a squirrel meme, but it'll help. Side note, I hate squirrels. It's a long story that has to do with squirrels finding my Kia Soul delicious, but this is not the video for that. So what about quantity? First off, having more connections just looks better. Yes, it's a reflection of the sad state of humanity, but we can either fight it and get mad about it or just go with it. Also, the larger your first degree network, the larger your second and third degree networks. That means you are way more visible to people, and therefore you're going to show up in a lot of searches when someone is searching for someone who does what you do. This is why I actually like it when a pushy salesperson tries to connect with me on LinkedIn. Yes, I know pushy salespeople on LinkedIn should be banished to squirrel hell, but I will gladly accept their connection request and then say no thanks to their sales pitch, but I'm happy to stay connected. Boom! More exposure, and 95% of the time, they won't bother you again. Now, there's another reason to go for quantity, and let me explain this with a quick story. So it's my first year of business, finances are tight, and I get a LinkedIn connection request from a stranger who doesn't have a profile picture and doesn't even have their name on the profile. They're using their company name, and it's some entertainment company. The whole thing looks sketchy. I can't tell you how close I was to hitting that ignore button, but something told me not to judge. I accepted the connection request. And it turns out this guy, he wasn't a serial killer. He was a serial entrepreneur, which is way better. He just didn't know how to set up a LinkedIn profile, and he just needed a whole bunch of social media help overall, and he was starting a new business. For me, that led to $30,000 worth of business, which I really needed as a startup. So I'm gonna give you some tough love here. Don't judge. None of us are mind readers, and you can't tell from someone's LinkedIn profile whether they're about to start a business or change jobs or go through some other life change. And you certainly don't know all the people they know who could also be your customers. That's why it's okay to spare squares with people who might not obviously seem like quality. They could be quality if you just give them a chance.
Besides, what's the point of networking?
But isn't the point of networking to meet people you don't already know? And another way to think about it is connect the dots. Networking is like connect the dots. You can't connect a lot of dots if you don't have a lot of dots. I kind of like that analogy. And smash the like button if you like it too. Sorry, I had to say that. Everyone talks about smashing the like button, but I would not stop you from smashing it. Thank you.
Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, but wait, suppose you have a bunch of people in your network who are not interested in your industry and they're not interested in your products or services. They're not going to be interested in your posts, and therefore they're not going to engage in your posts, and therefore your engagement rate goes down for your posts, and therefore your impressions go down. Doesn't that destroy everything? And I understand your concern, but overall, it doesn't hurt you. And when I say overall, I mean like 99.999% overall doesn't hurt you. Yes, LinkedIn does send your posts to your newest connections because it wants to test to see if any of these newest connections might be interested in your posts. But for the most part, and I mean 99%, LinkedIn is delivering your posts to people in your network who have already shown interest. There's also one type of person that most LinkedIn users forget to connect with. And when you ignore this type of person, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Also consider connecting with potential referral partners. With referral partners, you're both talking to the same types of clients, but you offer different services and usually don't really compete with each other. Like, let's say you're an accountant. A good referral partner for you could be a financial advisor or an estate planning attorney, because you all do different things but can help the same people. And in my case, as a social media trainer, good referral partners for me are graphic designers and website designers, and really actually anyone in the marketing realm, because we all tend to help the same clients, but just in different ways.
But whether you're reaching out to a potential referral partner or a potential customer, there is one type of person you should not waste your time on that a lot of people waste their time on. And let me tell you about that.
Before you even try connecting with someone or DMing them, you gotta size them up first to see if they're even willing to talk on LinkedIn. For instance, is their profile mostly complete or is it a dud? Do they have 5,000 connections or 5? What about their activity section? Are they posting or commenting on a fairly regular basis, or are they ghosting everyone? Only the people who are putting some kind of effort into LinkedIn are going to be the ones most likely to be open to conversations on LinkedIn.
Okay, so now let's move on from LinkedIn connections to conversations. And most of your LinkedIn conversations are going to be in commenting. And there are different ways to comment. You can comment on the post of someone you know. You can comment on the post of people you don't know because you want to meet that person. You can comment on other people's comments. And these could be commenters whom you know or don't know because you want to meet that commenter.
So you'll see here that this week I've posted 3 times and commented 51 times. Now that does not mean that I've commented on 51 separate posts. It means that I've had 51 comments in commenting conversations. But overall, my comments to post ratio is close to 17-1. However, that's just what I'm seeing this week. Most weeks I'm closer to about 10-1, 11-1, and maybe sometimes slightly more. But then I was wondering, what are other people on LinkedIn doing? And here's where it gets really interesting. I recently put out a LinkedIn post asking people to go on over to the weekly sharing tracker and let me know how many comments they did that week compared to how many posts. I then put their number of comments and number of posts and their number of followers into a spreadsheet. Now, the number of followers you have does not 100% indicate how well you're doing on LinkedIn, but it can give a clue as to the overall health of your LinkedIn presence. More on that in a second. Overall, the respondents did a total of 965 comments and 97 posts, which is almost exactly a 10-1 ratio. But perhaps 10-1 is not exactly the formula. And let me tell you why. I sorted everyone in the spreadsheet by their number of followers. The top 50% of people by number of followers had a much stronger comments to post ratio, 14-1, compared to the people in the bottom 50% who had it closer to 4-1. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If you have more followers, chances are when you put a post out there, more people will comment. If more people comment, you have more chances to comment back, which means you're going to have more comments in your comments to post ratio. However, 2 things. First of all, I know that these high performers are still taking time to comment on other people's posts because I see them do it. Also, let's say you don't have a lot of followers and you put a post out there and it's practically crickets. You're lucky if you get 1 or 2 comments, if that. So there's very little opportunity for you to comment back and have those types of conversations. That means you have extra time to go into other people's posts and comment and start conversations. So you can still hit those ratios no matter what. So I wouldn't recommend the group's average of 10-1 as your formula, but instead at least 10-1.
But the act of commenting alone does not make you a boss networker.
But first, you need to understand the big rule of content marketing. Every piece of content you put out there needs to do at least one of 3 things: educate, entertain, or inspire. And guess what? Your comments, yes, are little pieces of content. They need to do at least one of these 3. So if you're educating, make sure that your comment has additional insights beyond what was in the original post. In other words, don't regurgitate what was already in the post. If you're entertaining, you're probably commenting something funny or witty. And if you're inspiring, you're inspirational. That's pretty self-explanatory.
I will tell you that of everything I work with my clients on, commenting is their favorite thing to do, for sure. And it's my favorite thing to do too. But at some point, you need to have one-on-one conversations with these people you're getting to know, and that is through DMing.
And if you're scared of DMing people, I get it. I am an introvert, and DMing to me always feels like a bold move. But here's the deal. LinkedIn DMs get a bad rap because of all the LinkedIn losers out there who are trying to spam you. But there is another way to DM, and it's more laid back, it's refreshing, but it's still purposeful. DM like this and you'll be a LinkedIn legend. So here's what you do, you LinkedIn legend you. First, gather a bunch of online articles or other resources that the people you want to DM might enjoy. At least 5 things. And please don't make them resources that are really just sales pitches to get people to buy stuff. This should be pure, heartfelt education for your audience. It can even be from third-party sources that don't compete with you. Obviously, those sources would get the credit, and that's fine. Next, keep an eye on any industry events, even if they're from third parties, that again, the people you want to DM might enjoy. Also, turn on the notifications bell on the profiles of the people you want to DM, at least for those who post. Finally, every month or so, DM these people about one of the 3 things above. So share a helpful resource, tell them about an event, or add some extra thoughts about one of their posts. Now, if you're doing this last one, of course, most of the time when they post, you're going to comment directly on the post, not in a DM. But on occasion, DM them instead so you can have more of a one-to-one conversation. If after some time you find this person is receptive to what you're sharing and you're earning trust, then see if you can move it to a Zoom one-on-one so you can get to know each other even better and see how you might be able to help each other. You just have to be super patient before you get to that point because you have to earn it. Just remember that you're DMing humans, not robots. So you can't expect to lead everyone down the same exact path and have exactly the same messaging in the same exact time frame. Humans are messy. So here's some tough love. You have to throw away that easy button system because there is none and just have human conversation. That's what you do in person, so do it on LinkedIn too. Trust your human gut with how things are going. You can do this.
And there's so many tools I can give you for your direct messaging toolbox, including ways to get the conversation off of LinkedIn and to the place where you do business. And again, in a completely relationshipy, non-spammy way. And I've created a whole detailed tutorial about it. It's the Introvert's Ultimate Guide to LinkedIn DMs, and I'll give you a link at the end. And I really hope you watch to the end because it took me 3 weeks to compile all these videos for this one video. Okay, so now let's talk about content strategy and specifically the best days and times to post. Because some people make an enormous fuss about this, like they must post at specific days and times. But as you'll see, you cannot look at this in complete black and white.
Let's start with the best days. And I scoured a ton of studies. The results were all over the place, but the general consensus was that the best days tend to be in the middle of the week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, especially more Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And apparently the worst times to post, which I'm going to show you, actually have a lot of opportunity, are on the weekends. And as for the best times, again, I'm just showing you one part of the picture right now. The results were all over the place, but the general consensus seemed to hover around 9 a.m. to noon-ish. So why am I being all doomsday and warning you about these best days and times? One would think it's quite straightforward. Let me show you with this one example, and there's so many examples out there like this, and it's research and a blog article by Sprout Social. Now, this particular heat map shows the best days and times to post on LinkedIn company pages in general. And below the heat map, and this is where I have the problem, it says the best times to post are Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to noon. But what about all these other times? I mean, sure, Sprout Social acknowledges that Thursdays are good too, but it doesn't recommend any specific times on Thursdays. And it completely ignores all the other LinkedIn users who happen to engage with the platform on all these other times. So let's just step back so we can look at the bigger problem. It's so easy to fall into black and white thinking in life in general. This good, this bad. And believe me, sometimes I think in black and white because it's so much easier to put the world into nice, neat little categories because it feels so much safer. But then I have to kick myself because the world isn't really like that. And it's the same thing with LinkedIn. If we only post during these times because we're told this is the best, then we miss all the people on LinkedIn during these times who are also really, really good. Now let's talk about weekends. Now one can look at the heat map and easily conclude that weekends are the worst time to post. In fact, Sprout Social says that too. But again, here's another nuance. Most businesses shy away from posting on the weekends. Therefore, there are way fewer posts in the newsfeed for our posts to compete with. So there's a higher chance that our posts will show up in the newsfeed. So that's why I do sometimes post on the weekends. And sure enough, I get likes and comments and reposts. It's not as many as during the week, but it's enough that I've tapped into a weekend audience to make it worthwhile.
Another thing that people make way too big of a fuss about is the LinkedIn algorithm. And when you focus too much on the algorithm, that actually gets in the way of your LinkedIn success.
But first, let's talk about what you should not focus on LinkedIn, and that's the algorithm. You hear about the algorithm all the time, and most people are like, oh, I'm not worthy, oh, holy algorithm. And they do whatever they think the algorithm wants. Like if they think the algorithm wants videos, they start making videos. Even if they can't stand being in front of the camera and would rather walk barefoot on a minefield of Legos. But here are two bigger reasons why appeasing the algorithm gods can totally backfire. First, the algorithm is always changing. So what are you going to do? Revamp your entire LinkedIn marketing strategy and all your implementation plans every single time you hear a new hack? You'll end up running in all these different directions rather than just moving forward. Second, and most important, you know what the algorithm can't do? It can't buy your products or services. It can't start a relationship with you. So the more time you waste on the algorithm, the less time you'll spend on what's really going to drive your success on LinkedIn and get you in front of your ideal clients. And you know what really drives your success? The human brain, specifically your audience's brain. And unlike the algorithm, the brain has not changed for thousands and thousands of years. So the more you understand how to psychologically get in your audience's heads and deliver to them what they need from you on LinkedIn, the more you're going to dominate LinkedIn.
You also have to be super skeptical of algorithm hacks, because even when the hacks do work, a lot of times they eat up so much of your time that it gets in the way of you running other parts of your business that are super critical, or even just living out a normal life.
I mean, let's look at this. Every time you post, you need to first craft the content, however long it takes you to do that, and then engage for a full hour with posts from other accounts. And that engagement has to be scheduled around the time you post, regardless of what else is going on with your business. And craft and post 3 additional meaningful comments, including at bedtime. Are you going to do that for every single post? How about every other post? For me, maybe once a year for something super, super important, maybe.
And that's why when I'm working with clients, we're building out a strategy that makes sense with the rest of their lives. And if you'd like to create your own realistic LinkedIn strategy and see what it's like working with me, go ahead and schedule a 1-hour strategy session with me. I love to get to know you, and the link is in the description. Another thing that a lot of people obsess about is the format of their content, so let's look at that.
You have to first understand there are 2 different parts to a post to strategize. There's what you say, which is the topic, and there's how you say it, which is the format of the post. Like, for instance, will it be a video or a poll or a text plus image? We're going to cover both the what and the how. But here's the caveat. From my experience, what you say is way more important than how you say it. That might not apply to the rest of the world, but applies on LinkedIn. For instance, let's just say someone posts on LinkedIn what they ate at a business lunch. Today I feasted on a classic tuna sandwich with albacore straight from the can. Creamy mayo, crisp lettuce, and fresh tomato provided the perfect crunch and zest. This sandwich transported me back to the basics of culinary delight. Emoji, #tuna lunch. So yes, this post uses video, which is one of the winningest formats on LinkedIn, but no one cares what this person ate for lunch. This topic would flop like a tuna fish out of water. On the other hand, what if you had awesome topics, but used the simplest format known to mankind, which is straight text? No video, no images, no links, just text. Well, that's exactly what Alan Dibb posts all the time for his 12,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, and it works. His focus is the topic.
So topics, not formats, need to be at the heart of your content strategy. And now your next step with your content strategy is to get into your audience's heads.
Woohoo! Exactly! And if you want to be amazing at knowing your audience, picture your audience as just one person, like the perfect customer you always want to sell to. And if you already have a perfect customer, which would be awesome, then picture that person. Then just ask yourself, what's their day like? What makes them tick? What sort of life stuff is always swirling in their heads? Because the more you know what's going on up here, the more you can just break through and just grab their attention. So what you're saying is when you're creating a post, you need to honestly ask yourself, is this something that your perfect audience member would take the time to look at, considering everything else competing for their attention? That's right. You just have to be honest with yourself.
So once you're in your audience's heads, what exactly do you post? Let's start with value-driven content. In other words, content that either entertains or educates or inspires, because your content should give value.
So here's what your list can include for post topics. Common myths you want to debunk in your field, FAQs, and I'm not talking about questions you get about your specific products or services, but questions about how to handle something as it relates to your field. How-to tutorials, tips and tricks, industry trends or predictions, industry stats, your opinion about something in your industry. And the stronger your opinion, the better, especially if you can challenge the status quo. People love that. Personal stories, these can be recent wins or lessons learned that relate to your industry. Plus, any books or articles that you've read that you recommend to your audience, especially if you add a lesson in that post. When you keep a running list of content ideas in each of these categories, you will always have something new to talk about. You're going to keep your audience interested and engaged, and they're going to see how much you know that when it comes time that they need your product or service, they're going to call you.
Now, tripping. Do you know how hard it is to video this and walk in the woods without tripping? Okay, so beyond value-driven content, sometimes you do need to self-promote because you're running a business and people need to be reminded that they can buy from you. I mean, that's why you're on LinkedIn. And if you don't take a little bit of time to promote yourself, your competitors will promote themselves, and that's ultimately where your customers will go. So how do you self-promote without sounding pushy or spammy? And I will tell you, this is something I used to be super self-conscious about, and this is what I've worked out.
Now let's talk about self-promotional posts, which should not be more than 20% of your content. I mean, yes, sometimes we do need to remind people that we are in a business and we sell things that could help them. But if we remind people of that too often, the walls go up. And remember that a self-promotional post does not have to be hard sell, like buy now. It could be something more soft sell that boosts brand awareness and trust. And really, soft sell does a whole lot better on LinkedIn anyway. Okay, so here are some good self-promotional ideas. The first is to share a customer success story. Now you could say who the customer is or keep them anonymous. It just depends on what your customer is okay with. But the point of this type of post is to show the before and after in working with you. What did your customer struggle with before working with you, and where are they now? And that before and after is a story, and people love stories. And obviously, if there's a lesson that your customer learned that other people can learn too, feel free to put that in the post. But most of all, celebrate your customer's success. Or why not post a customer testimonial? The best testimonials also show a before and an after. Now, it'd be preferable if you got this testimonial in video format, like your customer shoots it on their phone and then just sends you the file and you work with that. But if you have a written testimonial from them, that'll work too. You can put it in a graphic and make that the post. And similar to the customer success story is the customer spotlight. Now, this is a little different because you're only parenthetically mentioning that they're a client, but really the post focuses on just how great this business is or the person is, or you're kind of just giving them a shout out and just celebrating them for who they are. Your customers will love it and your audience will see that you really do care. Or you can show up your own company culture, and there are different ways to do that. One of the most successful ways is to do a team member spotlight. You write a paragraph about what they do at your company, some things about them outside of work, how much you appreciate them, and then have a photo of them. And obviously this is only going to work with your team members who are not camera shy. You can also share your company culture by talking about some really cool teamwork going on or fun at the office. Don't you wish all work was like this? But again, it's all for humanizing your brand because people want to buy from people. And as your business grows, post a job opening or highlight one of your products or services and make it clear what pain point your customer has that your product or service solves. Or share a recent win, like did you earn an award or certification? Did you land a cool contract that you can talk about publicly? Or share something you just appreciate right now. It could be a particular client you're working with or a colleague in your industry or something cool going on with your job. And this isn't 100% self-promotional, but it's bringing people into your world. Now, if you are squeamish about this whole self-promotion thing, I get it. I'm the same way. I feel way more comfortable just educating people than talking about myself. But what you can do is in your educational posts, you can end some of those with 1 or 2 lines of self-promotion. Like, did you find this helpful? Contact me to learn more, that type of thing.
Okay, so now let's move on to the length of your post. In other words, how long should your caption be? And I will tell you, I see so many people write long captions because they see that's what quote unquote LinkedIn wants. But that's not a good enough reason.
Let's talk about the length of the post. If you are regular to this channel, you know that I love short posts. The caption is a sentence or 2, maybe a paragraph if needed. Shorter posts are easier to write, meaning it's way easier to stay consistent with those types of posts. And for the people receiving your posts, they're way easier to read. It saves them time. And honestly, when you see a post that's paragraphs and paragraphs long, do you read the whole thing? 99% of the time, people just skim these types of posts. However, the LinkedIn algorithm sees things differently. And I'm trying to come to terms with this because, again, I'm trying to understand it and put myself in its shoes. Posts that are at least 1,000-ish characters or more are going to be favored by LinkedIn. LinkedIn probably likes longer posts because if you have a lot of text, that probably means you have more chance to educate people. So definitely try it out. But I will tell you that if you find that writing really long posts several times a week is unsustainable, and as a matter of fact, it might even stop you in your tracks from posting on LinkedIn at all, I grant you permission to write shorter posts just so you can stay consistent and show up at the party. Because remember, 90% of success is showing up.
And this next one is for those of you who like to use big words to impress your audience.
Also, look at your language. You may have a longer post, but LinkedIn wants to see you're using shorter words, shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs with line breaks in between, so it's just easier to read. Human brains, no matter how smart they are, crave simplicity. Now, I know on LinkedIn, because I hear this a lot, that it's tempting to try to use big words and sound all formal to be more impressive, but that marketing strategy, whether in LinkedIn or out, typically backfires. You can communicate simply and be professional at the same time.
Now, at some point, of course, you do need to figure out the format. Are you going to do text only, text plus image, text plus link? Are you going to do a PDF carousel? Are you going to do a video or what? But like I explained before, don't worry about what the algorithm wants because that always changes. Plus, there are going to be certain formats that resonate with you more than others. And I just realized with all this walking and talking that I went down the wrong path because you see this log across the path? That wasn't there when I started walking. So let me find my way back. So anyway, my advice to you is this. Mix up your formats as best as you can, and that'll keep your audience on their toes. And if you have a particular topic that would work well in different formats, then make a post on that topic in different formats and then just spread that out over time. Okay, so now let's talk about another trap that a lot of LinkedIn users fall into when they're creating posts, and that is they pour so much time into overcomplicating their creative that it ends up just confusing their audience. And quick disclaimer, this next video is about social media in general, but it totally applies to LinkedIn.
Where I see a lot of business owners get stuck is that they're making their messaging way too complicated. And not only is this inefficiency going to hurt consistency, but this convoluted messaging is going to confuse the audience. And that hurts their social media results, and literally nothing good comes out of this. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say you're a pizza shop and you're putting out a promotion for National Pizza Day. So you spend 2 hours of your life, 2 hours you will never get back, creating this hot mess of graphic to put on Instagram. And how do I know it takes 2 hours? Because I saw a graphic almost exactly like it on Instagram. So I spent 2 hours recreating this graphic and of course eliminating all incriminating information to protect the guilty. And I needed to show this graphic to you to prove a point. Remember, people scroll on social media. They're busy, they're distracted. No matter how amazing your pizza special is, they're not gonna stop to read some War and Peace post about a pizza special that is squished into a graphic about this size on their phone. And if you're a regular to this channel, you know I've talked about this time and time again. But for purposes of this video about consistency, what's really sad about this post is that it took someone a really, really long time to create a bad post. Here's a concept. How about taking a short amount of time to create a better post that'll get in audience's heads? So I recreated the flyer to look like this, and it took me 20 minutes, which is 15 minutes longer than I like to spend on a post. And I'm not saying this graphic is perfect, but it's still way clearer than the original. And by the way, if you find yourself spending too much time creating a graphic and trying to smush in a lot of information, just quickly type them out really briefly in the caption that appears above. Wait, this is above. Above or below the graphic, depending on the social media site. Apparently I can do social media strategy, but I don't know my directions.
By the way, I haven't figured out my way back yet, but we'll do it. We're on a journey together here. So once you figured out your topics and your formats, how do you get people to engage with your posts besides the obvious things that, we always hear about, like creating a hook or using a catchy image? Here's something that a lot of LinkedIn users completely ignore.
Because if you really want engagement, you have to engage too. You have to give before you receive. Tell us more about that. Well, if you like, comment, and share on other people's content, especially other businesses' content, they're way more likely to send some engagement your way too. So you should block out a little bit of time each week to spread good cheer on other social media pages. Yes, exactly. Okay, let's take this a step farther. Let's say someone likes, comments, or shares on your posts. What should you do? You should cheer them on and thank them and comment back. Yeah, because people want to be acknowledged and appreciated. Yes, and Brooke, you know a thing or two about social media for a 50-year-old. Ditto.
Also, if you want people to notice your posts, don't do what everyone else is doing on social. Whoa, gosh. Oh my gosh. I can do this. And if you want people to notice your posts, don't do what everyone else is doing on LinkedIn or on social media in general.
Years ago, when I was just learning how to post on social media for business and I was posting for my employer, I didn't know what I was doing. I figured the best and safest course of action would be to post the same stuff that everyone else was posting because they must know what they're doing. And then somehow we'd attract attention by being the same as everyone else and get more business. Well, that didn't work. And let me explain an analogy why it didn't. And it's a crazy analogy, but just stick with me here. I approach social media like a cicada. Yeah, I know, a cicada. I feel compelled to use this analogy because as I'm recording this, millions of us in the US are dealing with the cicada plague. Okay, it's not a plague per se, but let's just be dramatic. This is what my back deck looks like. Apparently, this is the place where cicadas come to breed and die. And this is the sound we hear all day. So what do cicadas have to do with, So what do cicadas have to do with social media? Well, they're clumsy, they all look the same, and they all add to the noise. So when it comes to your business's social media posts, take an honest look at those posts. Do those posts sound the same as everyone else's? And if so, they're contributing to the noise.
Or are you more like a butterfly, which doesn't make noise but stands out in its own way?
I don't have any butterflies in my backyard, so I have to use stock footage. Unfortunately, most of us are part of the noise because it feels safer. We think if we sound like everyone else, they must know what they're doing, so we'll look good too. But it doesn't work that way. Your business is actually safer and will thrive more if you do what it takes to be unique. Because if we try to create the same noise as everyone else out there, here's what happens. Jacob decided to find all the dead cicadas.
164.
164 of them?
Yes.
Yeah. And he put them in a pile right here. Nice. Okay, I found a signpost, so I think I'm good now. I think I can find my way back. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching this far. And now what I want to do is show you one of my favorite videos. And it tells a story, but it also shows you what to do if you feel like you're spinning your wheels as you're trying to do all this stuff on social media, especially with content creation. So enjoy.
Now for the time waster. Many of us, believe it or not, are too picky. That's right, too picky when it comes to choosing content and crafting content for our business's social media. Now, I know most social media managers would say you should always be picky with your business's social media. But I respectfully disagree, and let me illustrate the dangers of pickiness in an analogy. And this is an incident that happened in our recent family vacation in Massachusetts. So my husband Stephen and our son Jacob and I are hiking in the woods. For fun, Stephen and Jacob are throwing discs, like this. Now this may seem like an odd form of entertainment, but you have to understand that a few of our family members are obsessed with disc golf. They're often practicing shots in our front yard, or they're playing on a local disc golf course, or requesting that I make them a disc golf themed birthday cake. Okay, it's not the best, but I tried. Anyway, we're in Massachusetts and Stephen decides to do a practice throw with Jacob's disc, an Innova DX Shark mid-range disc that Jacob proudly bought with his hard-earned allowance money. And the disc flies, and it lands not on the path, but a few yards to the side of the path in the creek. So I'm thinking we have two options. One is to buy Jacob another replacement disc because it doesn't cost that much. The other option is to step in the water and get the disc. And no, that's not ideal because it's no fun having wet feet for the rest of the hiking trip, but I'm happy to do it anyway because I'm not picky. But Stephen feels it's his responsibility to get the disc. He was the one who threw it, and he's determined to retrieve the disc while staying dry, thus achieving a 100% perfect outcome. Now, before I share more with footage, let me describe what pickiness looks like in social media. It's when we try to find that perfect article to share, or the perfect words to put in the caption, or the perfect colors and font for a graphic. All this extra effort for the perfect post can eat up hours over the course of the month, and those are hours we can spend doing way more productive things. And this pickiness, let's call perfectionism, can also stop us from posting consistently because it can stop us in our tracks. So at the creek, I'm watching Stephen as he's trying to achieve his perfect outcome. His strategy is to get the disc somewhere near a bunch of rocks that he can then step on and pick up the disc while staying dry.
He has the log right here, but since that time, it's loosened up, and we're trying to find where the disc went. He found it, he's gonna throw it because it's like stuck again. He's gonna try to like get the disc to move so we can get it downstream.
It didn't work.
Oh. Okay, so Jacob is giving Steven
It's like a javelin.
a bigger javelin stick. Okay. And it's still there. Why don't I just take off my shoes and go get it?
No.
And then Steven has what I think is an overly ambitious plan. He'll walk downstream to a log, cross the creek on the log, then plow through the part of the woods on the other side that's not designed for people to walk on, then step on these rocks to keep him dry as he gets the disc. And here he is, about to cross. And when it comes to social media marketing, and I've had to think about this, why do we sometimes get overly ambitious with our posts? I think there's this unspoken pressure to make every post amazing, like our reputation is at stake. But it's not at stake. Take LinkedIn, for example, which is like my favorite platform ever. I was shocked to learn this, but did you know that only 0.5% to 1% of LinkedIn users share content on a weekly basis? The rest of the LinkedIn users, when they're logged on, are just lurking. So if you share content on a weekly basis, you're already way ahead of your competitors. And when you do publish posts, only about 5%-ish or even less of your followers will even see your posts. And when you share a post with a link, only the tiniest portion of those people will click on the link to read what you shared. So the best thing you can do, and we can do, is to be consistent. And that means throwing perfectionism out of the window because it takes up too much time. Now, going back to the woods, our son Jacob would have been perfectly fine with a less than perfect result, even if it meant us buying him a replacement disc, because as he's watching this drama unfold, he has to keep pacing back and forth because mosquitoes love him and they're trying to eat him alive. He's such a trooper. Meanwhile, Steven ends up crossing that creek on that skinny log, and I am such a bad wife for not getting that footage. I didn't think he could do it. I thought he'd take a few steps and say, nah, and turn around. So I turned off my camera and was pacing with Jacob back and forth, also to avoid mosquitoes. But anyway, Steven is amazing. He did it, and now he's ready to make his move.
Now he is going from the other side over to get the disc. No! 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 Oh!
Perfectionism can suck us into a vortex, and here are questions I've learned to ask myself when writing a post so I'm not tempted to be perfect. How many people will likely see this post? How many people will likely click on the link? How many people will actually care? And how much difference will it really make if I spent another 30 minutes on this post? Now back to Massachusetts, and Steven is more determined than ever to make this work.
Okay, here comes Steven.
Being a hero.
He is being a hero. You got it. Yes! Woo!
I was hoping I could do it without getting wet.
Steven, when you watch this, I don't know what you're going to think, but I want you to know that I love you, and even though I may disagree with your methodology for retrieving discs from creeks, I will always be proud to be your wife. And for the rest of us, our audience will love us just for showing up consistently. Yes, we should still proofread our posts, we should still aim for relevant content, but I'm going to go against the grain of industry speak and say it's okay to not be so picky with our posts if it means we save time, we have a decent workflow, and we stay sane.
Okay, so now that you've gotten lots of LinkedIn tips and tough love, your next step is to learn how to convert your LinkedIn connections into customers without being that pushy salesperson. And it all starts by learning how to direct message the right way. So check out my video in the top right corner. It's your ultimate guide to direct messaging. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. And for funsies, I've compiled some of the most candid advice I've given on this channel. It's kind of like the brutal truth.